A fast-evolving political showdown between California and Texas over the party controlling the U.S. House of Representatives.
Texas, a state led by Republicans, is attempting to redraw its congressional districts ahead of the next election to send more Republicans to Congress. California leaders are responding, trying to do the same here for Democrats. Thanks for joining us at 4. I'm Lisa Gonzalez.
And I'm Curtis Ming. Just a couple hours ago, Texas Democrats prevented their state's House of Representatives from moving forward with a redrawn congressional map, at least for now. Democrats, the lawmakers there, left the state yesterday. That kept the Texas House from having a quorum, and that blocked the vote on a redistricting map in that state. Republicans hope redistricting there will net them several more U.S. House seats in next year's midterm elections. Dozens of Democrats arrived in Illinois and New York. The governors of those states spoke out about their efforts to stop today's vote.
Texas Democrats were left no choice but to leave their home state, block a vote from taking place, and protect their constituents.
And I have news flash for Republicans in Texas. This is no longer the Wild West. We're not going to tolerate our democracy being stolen.
Well, Texas Governor Greg Abbott has threatened to remove some Democratic lawmakers from their seats. Democrats have countered that Abbott is asserting legal authority he simply does not have.
And now California Democrats are trying to redraw congressional lines the same way Republicans in Texas have. And Governor Gavin Newsom wants voters this November to change the state's redistricting process to favor Democrats in the next election.
Republican Congressman Kevin Kiley plans to file a bill to try and stop all of this from happening nationwide. And KCRA 3 Capitol correspondent Ashley Zavala spoke with Kiley in the past hour. He also spoke with the governor about all of this. So what are they saying?
Yeah, a lot of moving parts here today. To be clear, Representative Kevin Kiley's proposal would prohibit what both Texas and California are trying to do right now. His legislation would ban this mid-decade redistricting nationwide. I did a Zoom interview with Kiley this afternoon. He says he plans to introduce this bill Tuesday that would cancel any new maps that are drawn before the 2030 census. Again, after the census is typically when all of this happens. This comes as Governor Gavin Newsom, Attorney General Rob Bonta, and the state's Democratic legislative leaders appear ready to move forward with asking California voters to temporarily upend the process here in California. California voters back in 2008 took the power away from state lawmakers to draw the maps and gave it to an independent citizen-led redistricting commission. California's Democratic leaders, though, want to now allow the state's Democratic lawmakers to draw the maps and then have voters approve it. California leaders have said none of this has to happen if Texas doesn't redraw its lines for Republicans. But Republican Kevin Kiley says none of this is okay.
I think that this is something that we should all be able to agree on, that it's not good for the institution of Congress, it's not good for voters or elected officials, and it's definitely not good for the country.
What do you expect the reception to be like from Republicans? I mean, especially the president who directed Texas apparently to redraw its lines to give him 5 more seats in the House of Representatives.
I think it's a terrible thing for democracy in California. But it's true as well that it's not good for the country if this is going to set off some kind of redistricting war with one state after another upending their map. It's incredibly bad for representative government. It creates instability. It's a distraction away from the issues that really matter for the country. And it's bad for both representatives and constituents. And to get your question, this is something I've heard from other members of Congress on both sides, is that regardless of kind of what the abstract mathematical political advantage might be from one state versus another, redrawing their map, nobody likes the idea of having their district totally upended.
Today at a news conference, I also asked Governor Gavin Newsom about Kiley's proposal. Here's what he had to say. Just to be clear, his legislation prohibits a mid-decade redraw. Is that something that you'd be okay with? That way you wouldn't...
Well, this whole thing is in response to. And in many ways, it's the spirit, and I appreciate your question, and I'll build off it. It's the spirit of the special session, this special session, as it relates to putting ourselves in a position to respond to the assault on the rule of law and our democratic principles, principles of federalism, 10th Amendment, that so often are brought to bear in light with the litigation that we've advanced. The proposal that we're advancing with the legislature has a trigger. Only if they move forward to dismantling the protocols that are well established, would the state of California move forward in kind, fighting, yes, fire with fire. So in that light, I believe there's consistency.
So just to sum up what the governor basically said there, and that was a lengthy response. He did not flat out say he supports what Kevin Kiley presented today, but he's basically saying it is consistent with broad efforts the governor supports on redistricting, which includes the Independent Citizen Redistricting Commission. He believes there should be one nationally, and perhaps this would be a step forward to doing that. But yes, that was a lengthy response in which we really didn't get an answer.
Okay, but to sum it up, and going back to Kiley's proposal, logistically, how would his proposal work since the U.S. House of Representatives are on recess at the moment?
Yeah, I asked that question, and he responded by saying he would like to see Speaker Mike Johnson and Democratic leader Hakeem Jeffries support his proposal. He says that would be the easiest way to fast track this proposal. He says he'll try to use every legislative tool forward to basically stop this redistricting showdown that could spiral across the country. And we should point out that Kevin Kiley's seat is among some of the targets that Democrats are discussing here in California. I asked if this is about self-preservation. He said, no, it's not. He's confident, but again, that this whole situation is troubling.
And his bill would only obviously affect California, so it doesn't have any say over what's happening.
No, it would apply nationwide. His bill would apply across the country.
Got it.
Yeah.
Okay.
So,
thank you.
Yeah.